Yeah. Hey, Basil.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good.
Basil.
You
Basil, why are
are
you sideways?
right. What
Why
is
are y'all
this?
sideways?
Are we sideways for you?
Oh, shoot. Let's
Is
get this going.
Instagram having an aspect ratio issue right
All
now?
right,
I want
There
to
we
try.
go.
there we
There
go.
we go.
Nice.
All right. So, hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll just jump right in. So, Techs of Color, strives to create a platform for African Americans in tech. And our primary goal is to connect tech professionals, entrepreneurs, newbies, career changers, boot campers. We want to connect everyone in the space so that they can share knowledge, resources, and opportunities. And today we're going to be talking to Basil, the instructor for our upcoming Foundations workshop, which is titled 10 Things to Know Before Any JavaScript Interview. I did not make that the title because it's too long. Basil, Basil, if you could please
I'm
introduce
guilty of
yourself.
that. How's everybody doing? My name is Basil. I help lead a software engineering team at Slalom here in Atlanta. I've been a software engineer for about 15 years, working on all kinds of different software platforms. I do web application development, mobile development, cloud development, service level development, you name it, I probably worked on it. And I've had the honor of teaching a couple of foundations courses. This is the latest one I'm teaching. And honestly, I think it might be the best.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Basil's throwing down the gauntlet. He's taught at least two or three times for us. And
Hey,
so
the next
yeah.
one is always the best one, right?
The next one's always the best one. So looking forward to it. And guys, I am Bridgette and I'll be your MC tonight. But we also have here one of our teammates, Adrian. Adrian, will you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm also a web developer, aspiring consultant, and I volunteer with Foundations.
All right. So let's get into it.
All right. So the first question is pretty straightforward. You're teaching a workshop called 10 Things to Know Before Any JavaScript Interview. So why do you think this topic is important?
So JavaScript is a very popular technology for application development these days. We all know most applications that people are developing have some sort of web capability. So you're building front ends on the web, you're also building web services. We're all very familiar with all the popular JavaScript frameworks like React and Angular. So if you're interviewing for a job, you're probably going to have some experience in those. But we're also doing service tier Java development using Node, building REST services and using frameworks like Express. So we're doing full stack JavaScript development. And as an engineer, you're probably going to be encountering JavaScript in your interview in some capacity. So there are a number of different bugaboos in the JavaScript language. And this course is designed to speak to some of those bugaboos so that when you see it or you hear about it during an interview, you'll know exactly what to say.
Okay. And when did you first start to learn JavaScript and why?
So I'm going to date myself a little bit, but my freshman year of college in 2003, I was taking a Java course. Yeah, I told you. You thought I was playing. So I was taking a Java course, and we had to build a web application in the Java course. And so I had to learn HTML, CSS. I had to do a little bit of JavaScript too. Now back then, we were just doing framework-less JavaScript using jQuery. But if you wanted to make your website exciting, it had to have some JavaScript. And I've been doing JavaScript development ever since then. If you're, like I said, if you're building a website, if you're building a service tier, you're going to encounter JavaScript. So it's definitely something that everybody should be familiar with.
Yeah, I'm addicted to JavaScript. I haven't started learning a second language yet just because I love the web. I just grew up looking at web browsers and looking at monitors and stuff. So it's hard for me to branch out, so to speak.
Honestly, so when I first got started in development, you had to have a second language. JavaScript was most people's second language. It was like, I'm a Java dev, or I'm a Java dev, but JavaScript's my second language. I'm a .NET dev, but JavaScript's my second language. Nowadays, JavaScript can be your first and only language, and you can have a very successful career, just like yourself, Adrian.
All right, so our next question is, how would you describe your teaching style?
So if I had to describe my teaching style in one word, that word will be loose. So I know we got slides, we got a curriculum, and there's all kinds of things that we want to make sure that people take away from the course. But I'm not afraid to go off on a tangent based on what the students want to talk about or what they want to learn in the course. There have been instances in courses I've taught where we've had people bring interview questions that may have stumped them in their interview, and we took the time to solve those interview questions during the course, because it's my goal to make sure that everyone who takes the course gets something out of it. And I've got great people on the course like Miriam and Bridgette to keep me straight, and they'll get me back in line, to make sure that we're not using all the time up for the course.
This is totally unrelated, but one of the things that I like about our meetups, like Coding While Black with Techs of Color, anything really, any meetup that you go to at Techs of Color, you could pull up with your homework, you could pull up with interview questions.
Something at the job.
I pulled up one time with like this, it was like this MOOC course from Coursera about learning like algorithms, and I hadn't ever used like Node.js at like a low level, so I couldn't figure out how to submit my work. I couldn't figure out how to do it, and I got help at a meetup. So I think that's something that people appreciate.
That's what Technologists of Color is all about. It's all about helping each other, and you can't help each other if you got this prescription for what help everyone needs. You got to meet people where they're at, and you got to provide people the help they need in the time they need it.
Yeah. What are some things about JavaScript that still confuse you or used to confuse you?
So I think the two top things, we're definitely talking about these in the course, are creating objects and the event loop. So there are a bunch of different ways you can create objects in JavaScript. You can use prototype, you can just do the object notation. What's the difference between those two? Why would you use each of them? We're definitely going to talk about that in the course. And you also got the, async event loop. You got blocking. You can use the await keyword and the async keyword. Why would you use those? Why would you not use those? We're going to be talking about those in the course as well. Those stumped me when I first started working with JavaScript. I work with a lot of engineers, and they still get stumped by the same thing. So I'm lucky that I get to answer questions that I've been answering for 15 years.
And what are some resources or techniques like over the years or just over time that you've used to like study or level up your JavaScript skills? So
everybody learns a different way. And I tell people all the time, you got to do what's best for you as far as learning. I'm a big video guy. So when I'm trying to learn a new technology or when I'm trying to learn a new aspect to a technology I'm familiar with, I'm going to typically seek out videos. One of the best sources for those videos is Udemy. So I'm like, if you look at my Udemy account, you'll see lots and lots of different videos that I've purchased over the years for different technologies I was trying to familiarize myself with. I've also got a subscription to Pluralsight that I get through work, so I get to watch videos there too. YouTube, surprisingly enough, is an amazing resource when it comes to videos. You can go on there and search all kinds of different technologies, and you've got people just like us creating videos on YouTube to post them and to teach people how to use these technologies. So if you're like me and you like learning via watching videos, there are lots of different services on the internet that'll help you out, that'll provide you videos. If you're more of a reader and you like learning via reading, all the frameworks that we're using, they have documentation. W3 Schools is still around. It was around when I first got started. It was around before I got started. It is still around. You can go to that website. I guarantee if you Google anything JavaScript, one of the first links that'll come up is W3 Schools. And then Stack Overflow. Yep. The GOAT of all help websites. You can't beat Stack Overflow when it comes to getting technical help.
Yeah, I agree. I flip-flop. I don't have a preferred style. Sometimes I prefer reading if I want to take it like a lot slower, but I find that if I'm learning like something specific, like a specific framework or library, I do like videos just so I can see like how people are putting their code together or where they start. So I could kind of get an idea of like, all right, if I was at work and I'm just coming and dropping something in, like where would I begin?
I like the videos because you can see it happen in real time. A lot of times when you're reading, it's on the page, but you don't necessarily see the code as it's being produced and as it's run. But to each his own, because ultimately we're all just trying to learn and get better. And so whatever works for you, that's the way you should be going with.
Right.
All right. In your own words, what should people expect to learn from this workshop?
So like I said earlier, if you're interviewing for a role, whether it's a pure .NET role, pure Java role, or even a JavaScript role, for sure, you're going to experience some JavaScript. And so engineering recruiters and engineering interviewers are asking more JavaScript questions. And a lot of them tend to be some esoteric JavaScript information that most of us hadn't encountered in, you know, our experience or in the classes that we learned. So this class is all about filling the gaps of knowledge that people have in JavaScript for some of the more esoteric portions of the language. So if you take this class, you're going to come away with a better understanding of some of those bugaboos within the JavaScript language. It's going to help you with your interviews, but it's going to also help you with your implementation and your development of JavaScript. If you're working on a JavaScript project, you might learn a new keyword, you might learn a new syntax that you can apply to your existing project that'll make that code more readable and make your code run more efficiently. So that's the goal, to teach people about some of the missing parts that may have not come along in your experience and your education about JavaScript, so you can be ready for interviews and you can be ready for development life.
Nice. And maybe our final question, I guess, is what advice would you give to someone that is just starting to learn JavaScript?
So the thing about development that I tell people all the time, development is a contact sport. It's not one of those things that you can just sit back and read a bunch of books, watch a bunch of videos, and wait until you have the full sum of knowledge for whatever you're trying to learn about before you get started. You got to get started. You're going to make mistakes. Those mistakes are what's going to teach you how to work with the language or the framework that you're working with. Like, there's not a single developer that has not stumbled their way towards knowledge. That's the way that knowledge is gained in the development space. So get your hands dirty as early as possible. Even if you don't even know how to spell JavaScript, start writing JavaScript. Start writing it now. You'll figure out how to spell it eventually. That's the goal. Just get your hands dirty, get in the code as early as you can, and that's the best way to learn.
As someone that was very apprehensive and afraid to put code down, I agree 1,000%. You got to write.
And you gotta write vanilla. Vanilla.
Gotta write. That's the other thing. That's the other thing. Great point, Bridget. Try to learn how to implement things without frameworks as well, because a lot of times if you're working with a framework and you don't understand how the framework works, that framework could be your best friend one day, it could be your worst enemy the next day. And if you leave your development life in the hands of something that you don't completely understand, then you could be in trouble eventually. So try to do vanilla JavaScript while you're learning. Then when you learn it, use the frameworks because it makes it more efficient, but it shouldn't be a substitute for actually learning how to implement the JavaScript.
Right. There's nothing like knowing what you know, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just in a nutshell. And I guess if we have any questions from our guests at this time, we'd love to take them. But if not, we'll go ahead and start closing out. So any last questions?
Yeah, any questions from anyone watching?
Yeah. We'd love any feedback. And then if not, we can move on to our next portion.
Who thinks they're coming to the class after hearing me speak? Who's not coming to the class after hearing me speak? Is there anything I can say to change your mind?
Don't miss out. So Foundations, the next Foundations course, 10 things to know before any JavaScript interview, is actually next Saturday from 10 to 3. This is a full schedule, right? So be there, early bird tickets, and this Sunday at $20. Thank you, China. China appreciates the tip about vanilla JS. Yeah,
thank you, China.
Don't get caught slipping out here. You know, once I was learning vanilla, and then I was just learning JavaScript, then I picked up jQuery and I forgot all of my stuff, and then I had to come back to it. So don't forget. So yeah, the course is next Saturday. Tickets are still on sale until this Sunday. They are only $20. And that's from 10 to 3 with Basil. If you love them, come join us. If you like any of what you heard, come join us. If you know someone who may be interested, please repost, share this opportunity. And to purchase tickets, visit textofcolor.org or click the link in our bio. And so, Basil, Adrian, I want to thank you for joining us. Our guests, anyone who's watching, thank you so much for showing up, and have a good night.
See y'all
Bye,
next
y'all.
Saturday.
Yes. See y'all next Saturday. Come get these gems.